I found an article on X the other day. It wasn't even an article, it was a conversation, and some of the commentary in the post was getting really fiery. Essentially, someone named a bigger splash was positing that said the that zero interest rate policy from earlier in the 2000, from 2016, 17 on, as we kind of drove down to those really ultra low interest rates, drove a lot of creation of thought work that didn't necessarily create true value. Consultant, there was a lot of money, capital available to hire consultants, a lot of capital available to hire people who were doing work about doing work, this kind of meta work concept. And so Kelly's dropping the link in the chat, and it'll be in the description if you're watching us on YouTube later on. But the idea was that since interest rates came up and capital dried up, especially around 2022, the value of this meta work has decreased, including product management work. The writers were positing that product management was potentially on the chopping block because it wasn't really a super high value role. Now, I think most of us are going to disagree with that fundamental premise, but I brought together a really interesting panel to talk about that today. So let's introduce them and see if we're in a market correction or a total structural shift. So first, in the studio with me, I want to introduce Josh McAfee. He has spent 3 decades matchmaking between companies and top talent, but his most daring commitment is owning his own fire truck.
I do own a fire truck.
So introducing Josh McAfee, he is the Wall Street Journal best-selling author and the founder and managing partner at Humans Doing. Next up, thank you, welcome. Next up, this guy's philosophy is that good products and good beer bring people together. And I want to say cheers to Bruce McCarthy. He is the founder of Product Culture, also a 2-time best-selling author of Aligned Stakeholder Management for Product Leaders, which we have right here and we're talking about today, as well as Product Roadmaps Relaunched, which was a really transformative book on roadmap management for product managers. Welcome, Bruce.
Thanks. Good to be here. Good topic for today.
Yep, glad to have you. Next up, this guy helps product teams run as smoothly as the shave on his face. This is Steve Johnson, author of Turn Ideas into Products, a playbook for defining and delivering technology products, and one of the creators of the Quartz open framework for product management. He is the CEO of Product Growth Leaders. Steve Johnson, welcome back, my friend. All right. And last but certainly not least, this guy is part bartender, part business guru, and 100% Brazilian. When he's not mixing a caipirinha, he's mixing up the product management game. Say hello to Thiago Brum, Senior Director of Product Management at ADP. He manages the Workforce Now product portfolio. Welcome, Thiago.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, and I'm your host. I'm Jason Brett. I'm what happens when you give a product manager a microphone and a recurring calendar invite. So let's get into the discussion real quick. And I want to start with you, Josh. And I'm really interested in your take, but I want to tee it up. Is the demand for product management shrinking, or is this just a shift that we're seeing right now?
Yes.
Yes,
so it's really interesting. So with everything that's going on right now, we still see a vibrant need for product managers. We see what people are asking being slightly different. It's basically more between the maturity of product management, at least here in Atlanta, which is we're very thankful for what you're doing to invest in this community, and the onset of AI and more so the adoption and it actually getting good at what it's doing. So people are just expecting more. And they're expecting more out of people with lower levels of experience as well. I find it interesting how many companies want a product manager, but they don't know what to call it. So we find we're dealing with 2 companies right now that both of them, they wanted to call one a product designer, and reality is they wanted a product manager. We find it very interesting that where somebody's at, greenfield, they got to figure something out for expanding an offering, existing product, maintaining, twilighting and building something new. But there's a ton of things out there that we see that we've got to get into the nuances of. Long roundabout way of saying, I looked at that post and I was like, the thing that they're calling the work about work, I mean, it's just as hard to get somewhere when you don't know where you're going as it is to come back from someplace you hadn't been. So I thought the comment was, I mean, it's one of those things that somebody's just trying to get clicks, in my opinion.
Okay.
And because reality is, you got to get your strategy down. I mean, you don't start building a boat without a design. And that's where product management, I think, really, really shines, is making sure that the work that's being done is actually going to be valuable and on track.
Very good, thank you. And I think you're gonna hear that theme a little bit. I know I want to jump over to Steve though, and I think you had a really good take on this as well. We were kind of shooting around a little bit on it, and I want you to share what you were saying to me.
Well, I don't remember what I was saying to you, so I'll just
Well, then
kind
to
of
start
jump
over.
in. I feel that it may be a difficult time to start a product management journey because now and for years, employers have been looking for people who are ready to hit the ground running. They don't seem interested in training you or grooming you or coaching you. It's like, can you do the job? But one of the difficulties that I've encountered increasingly over the last decade for sure is the fact that the hiring managers and HR have no idea what the scope is that they are hiring for. And so they say, well, we're really looking for somebody with 72 years experience who can be a designer and a project manager and a sales rep and a sales engineer and work for
$80,000 a year.
I actually did see it a while back. They were looking for a product marketing manager with 20 years of social media experience. And I don't actually believe social media has been around for 20 years, but nonetheless, it does seem we frequently are looking for the impossible hire. And yet I do believe that AI is going to increase the need for product managers because it's theoretically so much easier to build an MVP or a first version of a product. I think AI is really going to dramatically increase the amount of things we can do, but that it ever more begs the question of, are those the right things to do?
It's the
Over the
adulting
last
piece.
decade, I'm sorry?
It's the adulting piece. You have to have an adult in the room.
Absolutely. Over the last few years, I've heard people say, we've perfected Agile or we've perfected whatever. We've got DevOps now. We know how to build the product right, and now we're realizing we're building the wrong products. So yeah, you need an adult in the room.
Yep. Excellent. So Bruce, we're going to be talking about your book in a few minutes, but for the moment, I want to dig in and ask you, with what you're seeing among your clients, among your readers, and you've been doing a pretty in-depth book tour, and everybody's talking about AI. Is AI changing at all how you're thinking about product management as a role or a function, either one?
Definitely. I think a lot of people they're rethinking their own roles, and companies are rethinking roles across the organization with AI in mind. And some are taking the approach of, well, we can just use it as a tool to get more productivity, more output from existing roles. And some people, there've been a couple of companies out there saying, I need you to justify to me why we need to hire anybody at all, rather than just using AI in any role. And that gives, anybody pause about a career move into any particular zone. So I asked ChatGPT yesterday the question, a typical tech company has all these different roles, right? Product, sure, but marketing, sales, engineering, design, finance, customer support, all of that. Which, if a bunch of these things are going to get automated, and if a bunch of jobs are going to get either eliminated or at least shrunk in terms of the number of people, which role is best positioned to be the kind of the operator, the pilot, the prompt engineer for AI? And it said product management.
Yeah.
And it made the case with no leading. It's easy to lead AI to the answer you want to get, but I did not attempt to lead it. And it said product management, but only if it evolves. It said PMs are uniquely positioned to frame problems well, to integrate across multiple domains of information and input, to evaluate trade-offs, make decisions, essentially, be the adult in the room, and own the roadmap. Decide where we're going to go next, ask the right question, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But it also said product managers need to level up in data fluency, like getting all those right inputs and feeding it into the machine,
Right.
prompt engineering, agent design, and it also said, very interesting, change management. Because doing the job of product management is like not just operating the machine, but working on the machine of your business, right? Trying to improve it. And so deciding where to go and managing that change throughout the organization, which is, of course, I'm mentioning this, even though ChatGPT just came up with it automatically, because that's stakeholder management.
Yeah.
Because my favorite topic. And it said all the other functions are important, and product managers are not. I also asked it who's the best at prompt engineering today, just from a like effective use of the tool. And it said that it really liked the way UX people were using the tool to come up with multiple prototypes and things like that. So we have a little catching up to do, but according to ChatGPT itself, we are potentially its best operators.
That's really cool to know. That I would love to go and ask that same question across multiple LLMs and see if we get the
Yeah.
get the same answer. Like it resonates with me as well. What you said about UX was also really interesting. I saw a post and I may have to find it again because I almost used it for today's topic. And it was really talking about the opposite side on the UX side of things is too many UXers are still thinking in terms of functionally static grid type layouts for information display when the reality is with generative AI, the way of interacting with systems is evolving in real time with every conversation, and there needs to be a paradigm shift there. But it sounds like if we're seeing a lot of success with UXers, it sounds like there is some thinking there in that evolutionary thinking. I'm really intrigued to see how that grows.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of challenges in being a good operator of AI. Like I said, you can get it to tell you anything you want, and it will be very flattering about your own ideas.
Yeah.
So there's a skill there, and we need to develop it if we want to take advantage of this. But it also, what it's saying is it's making the case that some of the basic skills of product management, like understanding the customer and the business and the technology and being able to say, all right, this is the problem we need to solve. How do we solve it? That's the question you would normally be asking of your engineers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the question you might be asking of your UX people. Get the three of them in a room. Maybe AI can be a fourth member of that team to come up with some crazy ideas for you to consider, most of which are bad, but maybe they prompt other ideas among the team. Maybe it can be a first critic, like, we've come up with this design, what's wrong with it?
Yep.
Ask AI for feedback, ignore 9/10 of it, but every once in a while you're like, oh yeah.
Yep. I love how you pointed that out. So it seems like, for a long time we've been talking about how to prevent your generative models from hallucinating and giving you things that are way out there. There's now you're making a case that it's really beneficial maybe to get the generative model to give you some crazy stuff that you didn't think about. That's kind of way adjacent to so maybe hallucination can be good if you can harness it the right way. That's interesting.
So the dispassion and the lack of emotion in AI, we're seeing significant value in that when we ask it questions, like a lot of times we're asking questions we don't even know are biased. A lot of times we're asking things in a way where we're heated in emotion and we really believe it should be X or it should be Y, and coming back and having something that's dispassionate that can actually challenge that and challenge that in the group setting, we're finding really valuable in a lot of situations.
Cool. I want to switch over to Thiago, and Thiago occupies a unique space on the panel today, and he is the guy who is doing the work, not doing the work of talking about the work. He is looking from the inside out as a product management leader at ADP, really thinking about employee experiences and seeing the flow of data around roles and how employees are interacting with their companies. And you've got a different take. You're gonna have a different perspective on hiring trends and career trends in product management from an inside out view. I'd love to hear your take on today's conversation.
Sure. Yeah, I think most of the things they kind of like converge with what everybody was saying already. I like to think that when Steve taught us all about the purple squirrel that everybody's looking for, I think that with Gen AI, the purple squirrel is now just a squirrel because it's kind of leveling the playing field, giving you unlocking more skills that you wouldn't like, especially on the business side, on the research side of the house. I think that right now, in terms of hiring, to Bruce's point, stakeholder management is key
Mm-hmm.
because you still need to have that person who is able to influence, to pitch new ideas, to come up with like compromises, because we won't have the perfect solution to start with. And another topic that comes up very often and is always a topic for discussion is product managers speaking business language. Because at the end of the day, what we need to do is to enable a business. We need to be profitable. We need to reduce costs, right? There are some financials that they are dependent on the result of our work. So being able to speak like business language to interact with the executives and also with your peers and to discuss ideas outside of the technicality of a solution or just a problem to solve and really have this macro view of how does your work or the result of your work influence on the user, influence in an industry, right? Influence in the entire like value chain. So
Can I
so
just
I
double
would
down on
leave.
that for a second? Because I think you're really onto something here, and it bears on this AI question. We all know that my spreadsheet says is not a convincing argument. And
Not
I think
anymore.
ChatGPT says is also not a convincing argument. So
Right.
even though I just used it.
And you convinced me.
Right. But I was tying in everything that I had said to it and asked it and its answers into the greater reality. I was doing my job of persuasion by knowing my audience and knowing what you care about and what's going to resonate with you. I didn't read you word for word what it said. I picked and chose the right things. This is the job, regardless of the tools behind it.
And that's the main point, Bruce, because even when you ask a question to a chat GPT or any other LLM, you know that behind that there is a Gen AI farm. There are people tagging and training the model, curating the content that is displayed. So it's almost like if you want to talk about, we're talking about that awful post like the meta work, but it's almost like we are abstracting the LLMs and curating what the LLMs spit back at us to say, okay, let's rationalize, right, everything that we get out of the LLM and make sense of it, and then be able to form like a cohesive idea around it. So Gen AI is also like, because we're talking about Gen AI a lot, it's very important. And one thing that I'm seeing is everybody is moving to build agents, everything agentic workflows, AI agents all over the place. So the market is also asking for people who know how to play with Gen AI, how to play with these AI tools, how to become more effective, to really remove the busy work, right? So you don't need to do like too much meta work. You remove all the repetitive tasks out of the way, you automate the things you can automate, and then you can be more focused on the core of the job, right? So I think right now, I think that if Jason, to one of your questions to us before the panel, like should Is it a good time to be looking for a product management job? Well, if you are playing with AI, and if you are deliberately thinking about the outcome, the outputs of that AI and rationalizing things, and if you're doing your homework to upskill in the latest trends of the latest technologies that everybody's using, I think that is it's totally the right time because companies are looking for that type of professional today.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Thiago. So we've got about 8 minutes before the top of the hour where we're going to switch into our Q&A with Bruce on the Align book. But I do want to, while we've got here, first of all, if you are on the Zoom call and you'd like to jump in with your thoughts on this question, Jerry or Allison or Danielle or Guy. Guy, you had a great comment back there when we were talking about social media. If you're watching earlier when we were talking about was social media even around in 2020 or 20 years ago, just posting on dial-up BBS circa 1990 count as social media experience. I think many of us agreed yes. It does count, but certainly probably not what they were looking for. I don't know if Twitter. I was asking myself, did social media exist before Twitter? And I thought maybe you could make a case for it. There was that whole MySpace thing.
Yeah.
So maybe, but anyway.
Even before that, there were groups on different forums and all that as well.
So Allison, what's your take, Allison? In a minute, when you come off of mute.
It's not a day unless somebody is on mute. I apologize about that. So, good question, spicy question. I'd also say, just listening to the whole group feedback, hiring is broken and has been broken longer. That it is not in a good place. So to tell people whether they should or should not do things, that's really on that person. Where are you in your career? What do you want to do? At the end of the day, the market's going to go where it's going to go. The news is going to go where the news is going to go. Businesses are going to go where they're going to go. There's always a way for you to ask questions. Do I want to spend time on this right now? Is there something I can contribute? I listened to an interesting article last night, watched around being engaged when you have the opportunity to be an activist about something. And so, right, if you're truly passionate about helping businesses solve problems, helping connect customer information to people building the solutions that deliver customers, I'd say there's always a place and a space. Is it going to be that sexy product management title? Maybe. I think Josh said it, right? They don't even know what to call it in most of the roles that he's getting. So it's not always, I've very rarely held the title that actively describes what I'm doing. And so I'd say, even if it seems risky or it seems like it's not a space right now, there's probably the work is still there because human interaction is needed when we work together. I'll leave it there.
Can I double down on something?
Yeah, go for it.
There's you clicked on something that I think is really important. Is there's multiple sides to the decision. We see a lot of people that they guide their career by I want, I think, I feel, I need, but they diminish themselves because they're not thinking about themselves, basically defining themselves as a product. What's my value? Who, what, when, where, why, and to whom I'm valuable. Mm-hmm. So if you shift that in your career, wherever you're at in your career, and look at where you're at right now, and are they getting the most value out of me? Am I growing to what I'm capable of becoming? My career is a vehicle. Is it taking me and whoever is in the car with me, where it's capable of going, mm-hmm. or am I stagnant? Are we sitting at a red light? I can't encourage people enough to always be kind of looking at that and always be building their networks in this space, because reality is you may meet somebody today, 2 years from now, you've got a relationship with them and they call and say, hey, you know what, I really have a question that leads into the most amazing job you've ever had in your life. So just should you be, the overall question is, should you be looking to continue to grow your career or make a career change? The answer is yes. You should always have that in mind. Be it internally, be it externally, be it what you're training yourself to become. But companies and people outgrow each other all the time. Don't limit the company by staying in a role that you're capable of moving on to, or where they need something different than what you are.
Yep. That's a great point. And often we get stuck in a trap of thinking about our career in a specific role, technology sector, set of expertise, and not do we spend enough time thinking about our whole life arc and where that can take us and where we can go and how we can impact the world, whether it be through our employment or through other things, to really think about where can I go to learn the next thing I need to learn to have the maximum impact and experience that I can have. That's a great point, Josh.
And I mean, we've seen people that have amazing careers in one company for 20 years, and they've grown, they've done amazingly well. We see people that have been in 5 or 6 companies through that. But once again, I mean, it's not a do I look for a new job? It's how do I keep adding the most value possible? And if you I've had people that have worked for me that I love dearly that are amazing. They outgrew my company.
Yep.
What they were capable of doing was beyond, and I had to have conversations with them. Listen, I love you dearly, and I don't want you to leave, but reality is you're ready for something new. You're ready for this or beyond, and a lot of those people are running recruiting organizations. They've got their own businesses now, and I love that what we do with our company adds value beyond, and we bring people up to continue to do that. But it's that's just the way it goes.
Yep.
So, and I think employers should be looking at it the same way.
Thank you. That's great. Bruce, before we switch gears, I want to get to Bruce and Steve one more time. And so, Bruce, you go first.
Steve, your hand was up first.
Was it? Okay. Well, then Steve first.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say what I just heard was basically, are you managing your career the way you're managing a product? Mm-hmm. What problems can I solve? What problems do I need to be able to solve in order to move to the next step in my career? So thinking of it that way, it's like the product management skills that I have that I use for software or services are the same skills that I need for managing my career.
This was the same point I was going to make. I would just say, think about the 3 aspects of a value proposition for a product. Who's my customer, the type of company or the department or the hiring manager? What value do I bring to them? That is, what problem do I solve for them? Best advice I ever got was from Matt Kaplan, VP of product here in the Boston area for many different companies. And he said, I want you to fill in the blank. I'm the person who can do this for you. And then what's your differentiator? What's your unique approach that nobody else can duplicate that means that you're the best solution? So if you can fill in the blanks on that Mad Libs, I don't care what you call the job, and neither will the hiring manager. They'll be like, yeah, I have that problem, and your approach sounds good. You're hired.
Yep. Awesome. This is normally these first cup rounds go for about 15 minutes. We filled up a whole half hour with some really great discussion. There's some great career advice, some great philosophical. We got a little meta about the meta, but I think it was a great discussion. I want to thank everybody for being here. And once again, if you didn't see the links, we've got some great authors here that have taken their thoughts and put them down in ways that you can go consume them outside of this. Hope you will. Check out Measure Up by Josh. Check out Aligned and Product Roadmaps Relaunched by Bruce, and Turning Ideas into Products by Steve, as well as the Quartz Open Framework. Check that out as well. If you haven't had formal product management training, and many of you haven't, it's a great way to go get a completely open framework that you can learn from and take into your business practices to organize your thinking, organize your product innovation work. I highly encourage that. And then, of course, we've got Thiago. I want to thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts and about how people can get their W-2s faster. I'm just kidding. No, welcome. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm going to switch gears now and get into our main session. I want to thank our sponsors. We got a lot of sponsors that make this happen on a regular basis. This, of course, is a special session for our premium members only. So I want to thank you for being here. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to give you a little teaser and go away. You can go over to productcoffee.com and find out how you can watch the whole interview and discussion with Bruce here in just a moment. We'd love to have you here for that. But I'm going to switch gears right now. And, let's be real. Alignment isn't a milestone that you reach. It's a full contact sport. Today's session is our capstone to our Aligned Book Club series. And that's featuring Bruce McCarthy, who he's joining us live today for a coffee chat with our own Allison Herbert. And we're going to dig into the mindsets and mechanics of real world stakeholder alignment and open up the floor to your questions. So be ready to bring the spicy ones. So I'm going to hand the mic over to someone who is not only a product leader, mentor, and community builder, but also probably counting crochet stitches as we speak. She's built our book club from the ground up, lives deep in the woods of Virginia, and somehow still makes time to ski, hike, and mentor aspiring product managers around the world. So say hi to the one and only Allison Herbert, your guide for today's fireside chat. So, Allison, you can take it away now.
Thank you so much, Jason. I am glad that you finally made the crochet into my intro, because that is something I am humbly still learning painfully, that I cannot count, and it does not look like the picture or the video explains. So lots of learning to still do there. Thank you so much for allowing us to have the big stage today at Product Coffee. The book club community has been around, I think we're going in third year, I think we said, and started as a small group of folks who like to read, and still retains that. And we're so excited to have Bruce come back and join us for this reading and for today's discussion. Bruce is no stranger to the book club community. We read Product Roadmaps Relaunched the year before last. And at the end of that session, we learned that you were writing this book, and a few of the folks in the community were actively, Jerry and a few other folks actively helping you, find the information for that book. So I'll pause and just welcome you again, Bruce, and say thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, my pleasure. This is a great group to dig in deep on these kinds of topics, because it's all product managers, and it's not theory to you folks. It's day-to-day reality.
Yeah. The work, it is the work. It isn't the work to
Right.
do the work, it is the work. So I have a whole bunch of questions from our conversations with the group as we've been reading. I'm going to be monitoring our chat here as well. So if you have something, feel free to raise your hand, come off of mute. For those that have been to book club, know we just kind of talk through things organically. But to kick us off, I'd love to hear, Bruce. We talked at the beginning, I think, with the first session that we had around who should be reading this book. And I know we had a couple of different folks with different backgrounds in the product coffee community reading this, but I'd love to hear from you. Who do you think has the most to gain from this? Maybe it's the default answer is the product folks, but I
Well, yeah.
suspect you might have learned a few other things along the way, that there are a couple of other folks in our cross-functional teams that can maybe benefit from some of the perspectives here.
I think that's right, because the obvious answer is the product manager. That's who we were writing for.
Right.
And also, and at any level, because this is a skill I think that becomes more important as you grow in influence throughout the organization, in authority, as you move up levels in product. But maybe some of you have had the experience of trying to do your job as a product manager, as a cross-functional leader, of like understanding all the different inputs of the different functions, engineering, marketing, sales, customer support, and having them say, why do you want to know? Having them say, what business is it of yours? Stick to your lane. You're the product manager, not the customer support manager. That's my job. And I've certainly had that experience. And providing the background from this book, maybe a quick 1-minute summary of, well, here's how I think about my job. And here's why I'm trying to interact with you in a way that the person in that other job can understand, I think is a huge benefit. I would say, my job is to make sure that the customer receives value, and there's all these different pieces around the actual software or hardware or service that we provide. And you provide part of that. You provide in marketing the go-to-market, you provide in customer support the help getting the product to work the way the customer wants or resolving their issues. And they all have to fit together in a puzzle that forms a really nice picture for the customer. But if you don't feel like you can say that, or if that's not enough, well, then feel free to drop this book on their on their desk and say, it's all in here. Just read this. You'll understand.
Just read the book. Just read the book. I love that. And I will say, so we've read, right? This is not our first book with you. And I do love how practical some of your recommendations and or how you break down this information happens in both your books, but specifically this one. I think the first session we read together, I was like, that opening scene and or the opening information, the story, and we kind of indicated to this a little bit earlier, your use of characters and roles seems like you could insert this at anybody's product experience. And right, maybe even if the stakeholders reading it, they can see themselves in some of those characters.
Yeah.
I think
Some
we had
people
a
have
run.
asked me if I had a spy in their organization.